You're listening to the Zen Podcast, a show focused on mental, physical, and relationship health. Each episode features conversations with different guests who share real life experiences that could be from their own journeys to the work they've done with their clients. We explore what actually helps people move forward, whether that comes from science, spirituality, or day-to-day simple habits that could make meaningful differences. The goal of the podcast is to provide clarity and tools you can apply in your own life. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we have Michelle Shabazian. I love it. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm so proud of myself. And today she is back because she is a fan favorite and people love her opinions and her expertise on love and dating. So because we are all watching Love is Blind at this moment, I thought it'd be really interesting to have her come on and give us some of her opinions on the first 6 episodes that were dropped this week. So welcome back to the show, Michelle. How are we doing?
Fantastic. I loved watching Love is Blind, the Ohio edition. I can't believe I hadn't seen any of the other ones, but I would love to hear feedback from anybody who's listening to this on like which are the other cities or countries that are interesting. Because I tried a couple of them, I wasn't super into it, but the Ohio one was fantastic. I'm dying for the rest of the episodes to drop.
I do think the Ohio one is very interesting. And I also, when I was watching, I was like, people really learned a lot from the previous seasons. Like, for example, sometimes when people are like, we're just not that into you. And people are like, that's fine. I respect that. In previous seasons, people lose their shit. They're like, what do you mean? I'm so great. And like, so I feel the contestants have seen enough of the backlashes and now they kind of behave more professionally or more cordially on the show now. But this is such a great season. And, you and I connected before we got on this recording and you shared some fantastic observations. For example, you were talking about the scent. Would you elaborate a little bit for me and the audience?
Yeah, in that first episode, Christine was telling Vic, she's like, I can't wait to smell you. And it made me realize that the show is called Love is Blind. So the assumption is that people are not seeing the other person. But when we fall in love, when we're trying to get to know somebody, we use all five senses, I feel like, and then some. So it's not just that you need to see visually somebody, but yeah, you need to smell them, you need to taste them, you need to be able to like hear their footsteps and be able to see what's that energy that they bring into you and how do they feel when you touch them, right? All of those pieces of information is what helps us decide, do I want to move forward with this person? So I think, blind is such a broad term for the title of the show, but super interesting that she pointed that out. I loved hearing it.
I love the observation. I feel like that's something I would have completely missed it. But with that, I wanted to also point out, the show is pretty much people getting to know each other in the pods by having a conversation. And so before anybody able to smell somebody or taste somebody, but at the same time, voice is such like an important indicator on whether we like a person or not. As a matter of fact, like 2 days ago, one of my friend was telling me her husband is not really down with the therapist that he was seeing because the therapist's voice is not something he is a fan of. And she was asking me, do you think it matters? And I said to her, voice is vibration and vibration is information. So subconsciously, we're all analyzing each other based on the qualities we have. So I do believe that in those pods, even though people might not pay attention to their voices as much, they are probably receiving more information than they thought.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. It blew my mind. I was listening to this book. It's called Behave by Dr. Robert Sapolsky. And he was talking about how there's obviously, like, as human beings, we are just a compilation of all these different types of cells that have stuck together over millions of years of evolution. And he was talking about how people who are culturally driven towards hierarchy have this like specific cluster of cells that lights up very often and takes in information and creates the mindset of like, I must be on top, or like, oh, that guy is on top, I have to be more submissive, right? And it's like a cluster of cells in your brain that is that can be attributed to, right? So when you think about sound and voice, and you're very right, it is vibration. It's going and it's sitting somewhere based on not just who you are today, but where you've come from generationally and what's been passed down to what your brain and your body chemistry thinks is best. So it's a very important piece, but such a slim piece of the pie. It is like one element of so many, like the pieces of information that you get when you're in person with someone. And I know that that is why so many of the relationships, by the time you get to episode 6, already you can see the cracks. You can see where things start to crumble because now they're getting like flooded with all this new information. And then it's like, does that actually really fit my life? I actually want to spend every single day for the rest of my life with this person. Where I think that if you had just put all of these people in person with each other, they may have chose completely differently, or a lot of people might have walked away sooner and just been like, nope, there's nobody here for me.
I think a lot of contestants, not a lot, maybe 3, said the people they ended up with engaging to is not somebody they would have
Mhm.
chosen if they saw them in real life. And pretty much like at this moment, they're pretty much talk about physical appearances. I wanted to take a moment and talk about whether love is truly blind and are we able to transform emotional connection into a physical connection. Do you believe that if two people are so in love, they can actually overcome the lack of attraction towards each other?
I don't think two people would be so in love if they weren't physically attracted to each other. I don't think that would classify as so in love because love is comprehensive, it's holistic. And love means something different to every single person. The way somebody feels loved and the way they want to give love and what makes them feel loved is unique to every individual who's ever lived. But to answer your question, can you turn some kind of emotional connection or like check off on all the boxes on the paper into a physical attraction? It is possible. It's rare and I don't recommend it because it's very risky. And if you don't have that physical attraction long term, you're just missing out on life. Like you're cutting yourself short and you're settling for like not having that like feeling every time you see somebody, not being enraptured by them, not being like just like butterflies and drawn to them. Now, does that last when you do have it? No, of course not, because people will screw up and they'll damage a relationship beyond repair. And then you lose that. And then it's like, oh, okay, so now you're stuck with somebody who hurt you. And then now the physical attraction is gone. Then what? Relationships are so dynamic and ever evolving, and you have to always be on your best behavior in order to make it amazing lifelong. So many people think that if they find, I think almost all people probably who get married think that if you have something amazing at the start, that's it. You're good. Just take it and go and live every day, and it should be amazing. But like as grown adults, we should know that if you're not your best self all the time, it will crumble. It's just like a career. It's just like being a parent. It's just like your body. If you don't work out, you could get into the most amazing shape and then be like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to just like never work out again. Yeah, of course, it's not going to stick around. Everything is going to morph and change with each passing moment and each passing decision that you make. So, can you create that? Sometimes it happens. There's a statistic on Indian match made weddings, marriages, and they actually have one of, if not the highest rates of success long term, because love means something so different to them culturally and then down to the individual, right? So they're successful because they don't start out, they're just like this. They get matched up, barely having seen each other, maybe having met once before the wedding. And this is a lot more historically and in the country, maybe now, but a lot more historically, obviously. And then they match up and they don't know they don't even know if they're like right for each other, but the elders have chosen these two for each other. And they end up, because they don't have the exit strategy of divorce or separation, and because they're very focused on family and raising their children right and focusing on maintaining a good reputation and maintaining the properness of human society and all of the stuff, they end up with a much higher success rate. Are they happy, like what Western society considers happy? Maybe, maybe not. But are people in Western society happy? No, because what's the statistic? It's 95% of couples who are married for 25 years or more do not consider themselves happy. Only 5% of couples after 25 years of marriage, this is a research by John Gottman, everybody can look up, it's so fascinating. Only 5% of married couples after 25 years consider themselves happy, right? So what gets lost from when you got married and you thought this was the greatest thing ever to 25 years in and it just tanked, that you're just like, oh my God, what have I done? I've lost my youth. I've lost my body, I've lost my sanity, I've lost my drive, my passion, right? So doing it right is so important. And I love that this show brings up so many interesting questions, and we'll get to talk about more of them. But I think, the starting point doesn't reveal anything. It's not a good indicator of what the long run is going to look like. There's so many other things that you need to look for and ask about and figure out, and then keep adapting and adjusting in increments as you go along.
Right. And I think this season actually have more engaged couples than the previous ones. I think we are looking at 7 of them. Usually it's like 3 to 4. So I'm very impressed with people from Ohio. I think that people took this reality TV show or this experiment very seriously. But in terms of effort after they came out of pod, it's pretty clear to the audience. And Brittany, who is one of the contestants, also shared verbally that she felt like her fiance, Devontae, kind of were not reciprocating the interest, at least not very explicitly. And before we jump on the show, you mentioned, I let you tell the story. Tell us what's your thought on Delonte and Brittany?
My God, and she is so gorgeous.
He
Like,
truly is.
let's start there. Like, I can't imagine any man not being like, I want her. She's all of the women on this show, so beautiful, but her exceptionally so. I mean, curvy, just her face, her skin, her hair, her features. She was a 10 out of 10. Right. And her personality, so fun, so bubbly. She was like laughing all the time, so easygoing, which like most men want. Um, so what the dynamic that happened there is that there was a couple of times I feel like where she almost like tore him down, very like unintentionally, I feel like, but just knowing how men think, I think when she was like, I feel like your voice is so nerdy, and she brought that up a couple times. I think for a man, like, and you could kind of see it where like he just like took it and was like, I don't know how he felt. I don't know. Maybe he'll hear this one day and comment. But I feel like that was a really big blow. And that's a really hard thing to recover from in any relationship, because you can't change your voice. Do you have a
Okay,
thought?
why is it a blow? Like I mean, people can come to me and say your voice sucks, and I'll be like, okay. Like I don't know. Is there like a individual button that
Yeah.
she on, or do you think
Yeah.
it's like
I think
general?
I think most men, I think you are very confident, and I think you have a strong sense of self, and I think he does too, but I feel like I don't know, and I could be totally wrong. I could be wrong about everything, but I think that just saying that to a person and then being like, all right, let's live the rest of our lives together. And if you noticed, he asked her when they first met, he's like, do you still, that was like one of the first things he said. They were on that red carpet, I think. He's like, do you still think my voice is nerdy? And she's like, yeah. And she laughed at him. And I just think that for like a man, not necessarily a good starting point, but okay, let's say they got over that. The biggest hurdle that they will run into if they do end up together, we'll have to see what happens in the next few episodes. I don't think they'll end up together, but the biggest hurdle that they will run into is that whole thing of he wakes up early and she doesn't. Knowing your sleep wake cycles with your partner is such a big deal because people don't calculate how much time you lose in the mornings and in the evenings that you could be spending together and building connection and rapport. And when you love somebody so much and you can't get enough of them, you will want to have as many hours in the day with that person because you'll realize life is so short. If you start when you're 30 and you're lucky enough you live to 100, it's actually only 70 years. It's not that long. And then that's it. It's done. So I think the way that he was showing her that he wasn't that into her is very common, where he kind of was just like, brushing her off, like not super attentive, not affectionate, not asking her like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" Or like, she's like, "Okay." There was one point where she's like, "Okay, let's have sex," and he was like, "Meh." Like, I was like, "This is done." There's no if a guy is rejecting somebody as beautiful as her, like, he probably just didn't in person feel the vibe and connection, and I think there probably in his mind was a huge cultural piece. I didn't get catch I don't know if you did, but I didn't catch where he was from, but whatever because he was like, "She's a woman of color," and I was like, yeah, like, she's, like, light brown, like, she said she was Latina, but I was like, "Where's he from? He's not, like, super white or anything," like, so I
Yeah.
didn't get what the, actual problem was there, but for him, obviously, it was something that maybe either wouldn't work or it was an excuse, but already I feel like, he had stacked so many things from, like, the moment they met on that red carpet, and she made the comment back, and, like, by the time he was like, "Oh, she's a woman of color, I would have never chosen her," I was like, "This is not gonna work." And then by the time he was, like, waking up early and he's like, "Oh, but don't you know I need my alone time?" The second you hear stuff like that, just
Thinking off.
it's like, don't even waste your time. People
Right.
in love don't need alone time. They literally can't get enough of each other until they die. Like, I get old people in my office, they're, like, in their 80s and 90s, and they still can't get enough of each other, and they're like, "Yeah, we have a great sex life. We don't know what these young people are talking about," you know? So, it is unique to every person, but you just have to know who you are and what you want and not compromise on it because there's so many different types of people in the world. You just have to go find the right one. You only need one. I had a teacher in school when I was studying to become a therapist. She would always tell me, "Michelle, you only need one husband. Just find the right one, find the best one." I didn't get it until I found the right one, and I was like, "Oh, that's what she meant."
That's very true. But I would say Devonte also, he was going through something that's, he had a loss, right? I believe it was his
His grandfather.
grandbrother. Do you think that maybe he was telling the truth and he has a lot on his mind? Because one conversation that he had with Brittany was like, when I go home, I'm going back to a family that, a member of it is no longer there. So there's a lot on in my
I think if he was really concerned about that, he would have left the show. Because he didn't leave the show, I don't think it's like that. It's of course it's a huge loss, but I don't think that is the reason that he was being distant.
Okay. I did feel like their engagement to me when I'm watching the show, and this is the first time in my life where I actually sat down with my laptop and taking notes. Usually I'm like on my phone listening, but not paying attention. Like 2 hours later, I'm like, what? What happened? But I would say they didn't show their relationship as much as other couples like Alex and Ashley, like Emma and Mike. So it took me by surprise when all of a sudden they're engaged. So I definitely feel like there's a lot of piece we didn't really see throughout their dating, and maybe there's something more major happened.
Of course.
But I would say when Alex went to Brittany and talked to her about how it might be difficult for somebody to overcome this lack of physical attraction, I was quite surprised because Alex, to me, I do think he's an attractive human being. But I also think that him ended up with Ashley. Ashley in this relationship, Ashley is to me more attractive. She's like this blonde girl, like piercing blue eyes.
Gorgeous.
And from Alex's perspective, he said that in the past, he liked to date girls with darker feature. right? More sporty, maybe more curvy. And I think that as attractive as Ashley was, there was a moment I was like, is Alex not down for Ashley? Did you sense that? Or do you
Yeah.
think that he was hitting on Brittany because he sensed Brittany and Devontae were having problems?
He was 100% hitting on Brittany, and I think he realized that and I think Ashley realized that. You could see that energy that he was like, "So what's going on? Are you guys gonna break up? Like, so do you like tall, dark, and handsome? Like, what's going on?" You know? I feel like he was kind of poking around and like planting some seeds. And also little bit just like showing interest in her. And I think she got it. And I mean, I hope she got it. I got it. But he was like, I like women with dark features who are curvy. Wink, wink, hint, hint, you know? Um, and he's not into Ashley. I mean, yeah, I bet if they met in the real world and they did hit it off, they probably would have dated for a few weeks and then it would have been over, him and Ashley. And maybe same thing with Brittany. I don't think he's ready for marriage. I think he needs to find somebody who is as detached from life and the world, and he's just this like free spirit. He's like, I move every 2 months, and I've been all over the world, and I'm a soccer coach, and like he doesn't have this like serious career, and must have his finances to some extent figured out. But he's a very I thought he was very handsome. He looks Middle Eastern, maybe that's why. But he's a handsome guy who has a lot going for him. But I wouldn't say that anybody in this entire grouping of women would have been correct for him because of just who he inherently is. And I think the show is interesting because in a lot of ways, they don't even talk about what they look like that much. They'll be like, "Oh, what are you wearing?" But they won't be like Brittany could have told the guys that she was talking to, or Ashley could have told the guys she was talking to, "Hey, like this is how I am. I'm slender. My chest is huge. My chest is not that huge, right?" Like guys need to know this kind of stuff to some extent. Most guys are not that picky, but I think when it comes down to and I think that's in dating, but when it comes down to like marriage and like this is the body you're going to be touching and loving on forever, I think they have preferences to a great extent, right? Just like me and you do. There's just certain things that you're like, "Oh, you could be perfect, but like if there's like this 1, 2, and 3, I'm not really that interested. It doesn't vibe." And that is also generational, cultural, familial. Where did you grow up? That makes a huge difference.
When Ashley and Alex having this conversation on the boat they were on, and Ashley was like, I feel like I'm a little nervous about the future. And Alex was like, this is my lifestyle. I'm not nervous. I'm ready for anything. I don't know how they edited the show because sometimes they might flip the timeline.
Mm.
And maybe the conversation that he had with Brittany happened before this conversation. But just
Was
the
that the
way,
conversation in the bathroom at the end? And she was
no,
like, "You need to support me."
no, that was a recap of the conversation they had on a so they had a conversation on the boat where Alex was like, if the only thing I'm nervous about is that I'm not nervous about the future.
Yeah.
And then Alex went to talk to Brittany about whatever Brittany was going through. And then Ashley and Alex went back to the hotel room and they had a little recap. For me, it's like when I look at Alex, I low key understand his lifestyle because for me, my entire life is not that I wasn't seeking stability, it's because I was wired by my family to continuously quote unquote improve myself and try different scenarios, try different things, date different people so that you find this one person. And people ask me why you never had a stable relationship. And I always say there's one story where I think one thing my mom told me when I was younger was like, okay, dating is like you go into a land with so many watermelon on the ground. I don't even know if that makes sense, but basically don't choose the first watermelon.
Mhm.
Go through the garden, listen to the sound when you pet them and figure it out which one you actually want. And that takes time. So I think that for me, I didn't settle down or I didn't, and this does not just apply to relationship. This applies to a lot of things. It's like I wanted to explore to figure out what's best for me. When it comes down to Alex, it's hard for somebody to live that lifestyle. There's a lot of the unknown. As much as he says he's not nervous about, I bet there have been moments in the past like he's very scared of what's going to happen. So he probably does want to have a stable relationship, get married, have kids, coach his son
Yeah.
soccer or daughter soccer, right? So when people like that come into the show, or people like that in the real world, like, how do we find the one? Because on one hand, it seems like we're not ready, but on the other hand, we are dying for it. We're
Uh-huh.
dying for that, stable married life. So like, if Alex were sitting here today and I'm sitting here today with you, like, how can I be more marriage ready?
Have your life very well put together. And that whole thing about the watermelons and knowing what you like is so important, because if you know what you like, if you know what lifestyle you want to live, and if you have created the most elevated version of yourself, and you're just happy, you're light, you're floating on a cloud, everything is working. You don't have toxic people in your life. You don't have extra stress and drama. You're not dealing with something difficult or some kind of health issue. You're not out of shape. You're not like just sitting around watching YouTube for 20 hours a day. You have everything in your life in order. You're making good money, or you have a source of income that works out really well. When everything is in place for you, that's when you know you're ready. Don't even think about, don't even imagine what it's like to be with another person until your life is exactly where you want it to be. That's the best way to go about it. Now, as close to that as you can get, the better, because what you'll find is if you don't necessarily know yet, you will know one day, but it just might be after you get married to a person who has like an opposite experience in their life, and like they don't want to change it because they already knew that before you guys got together, and they'll say that like, you knew this when you married me, and they'll be like, take it or leave it. So being very attentive to that, and you'll know if you are unsure if your life is where it can be, and if you're your most elevated self, if there's doubt, then you're not there yet, because when you get there, there will be no doubt. You will have every feeling that points in the direction of, this is my best self, this is how I live, this is who I am, I'm grounded, I have control over my mind and my thoughts. My life is fun. I love the people I hang around with. I love what I do to make money. I'm happy. I love where I live. I love the city that I'm in. I don't want to move. If I do want to move, I want to meet somebody in XYZ place, and or I like moving a lot like Alex does, for example. I need to find somebody who's like truly mobile and wants to continue to be mobile. Then yeah, then you can go and you find somebody who matches that life that you have. Like the sleep wake cycle is similar. Like in Devontae and Brittany, it was so off. Your food habits, your workout habits, your amount of socialization you like to do, whether or not you want to have kids, which came up for Emma and the guy that she was talking to. All of those need to just fit naturally. People always worry that that counterpart doesn't exist. It does. It always, always, always does. But if everybody just settles and starts pairing up with the wrong person, then no, there's less people on the market. If everybody just stays single until they find the right person, then we would have 95% of people happy after 25 years of marriage, and only 5% who like didn't get the memo and they're doing it wrong still, right? We can totally flip that on its head. If everybody just like holds tight and just like be patient, don't worry so externally and be anxious like, oh, I'm dying to have this a person in my life. I need to have a partner. I want to get married. Like, ask any married person, like, don't rush. People be like, oh my God, dating. People come to my office and they're like, Michelle, but I don't want to break up with them, even as horrible as they are, because then I have to go date. I'm like, oh, let me get my violin out. Cry me a river. Like, it's not that bad. Marriage is a daily effort towards making a relationship work from both sides, and if if the other person isn't doing it, you've got to pull your partner with you constantly. Then you have children, then you have a mortgage, then you have in-laws, then you have COVID, you have all these like unexpected, you have 2008 happen, you have all these unexpected life stressors that can throw you into a whirlwind that, like, if you're dating, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to block them and move on. No, they'll move out of my apartment that we're renting. Like, no big deal. We'll move on. That is so much easier than like, now let's split assets. I got to get you off the title of this house. Like, let's get a divorce lawyer and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? These things get so complicated so quickly that it's important to say, hang on, let me figure myself out. Let me be patient and find a partner who fits my lifestyle. And then let's grow together. And finding somebody who has that mentality, who isn't just, oh, we found the right person and that's it. We're never going to have to work hard a day in our life. That will never work. That person is not ready for a relationship, or a person who doesn't have control over their mind, the person who doesn't have control over their life. Like Kevin was saying, he's like, I just have a one-bedroom apartment. Like, props to him. That's a lot of respect to that guy. He's like, I don't have it all figured out. He's not ready for marriage. Tyler was she is ready, but she's almost too ready. She's like
Wait,
desperate ready.
I'm sorry to cut you up. You
No,
thought Tyler was ready?
she was ready for a relationship and marriage. She had a lot of the right ideas, but there's two things. She was too like, oh my God, he's the one. That's it. Let's go. It's not like that. Like, and Kia kept saying, she was like, we are here to keep exploring and to keep thinking about it and to see, like, is this going to work? And we have to be talking to a bunch of different, that's the whole point. Like, why do you feel bad, Kevin, that you're now talking to me and you have some feelings? And he felt bad because Tyler was now so invested in him. Right now, the other side of Tyler, when you look at the difference between her and Kia, was that Tyler was too, and we've all been there, it's no judgment, but she was not mature enough yet to be able to handle marriage, right? Because marriage is going to come with so much unpredictability. There's going to be other people trying to intervene in various ways, not just romantically, but there will always be some kind of stressor. If you couldn't handle that stressor, you're just not ready, and that's okay. But I will tell you, Kia said at one point, she's like, I feel like everything happens for a reason. I don't know that I believe that exactly, but she was like, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I feel like I was put here in this show for a reason. And even if that reason was to just split Kevin and Tyler, that was a good enough reason, because she was very, very mature. And she talked a little bit about her previous career. She had worked for the Cavs or something. So
Yeah.
she's able, like, she was put in this position. Whoever was above her realized that this woman is able to handle very complex systems and create change and movement. And like, she was so clear minded that she, the way that she spoke, she was very, very mature. She was ready. But again, nobody was the right fit for her in that group, which is okay. Then, they walk away, they move on. But Tyler, having walked away, hopefully the better match for her is for her to go out and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm so proud of myself. I chose myself. I walked away. B, find somebody who makes at least as much money as you as a woman, if not more, which segues into something we were talking about before we got on, of like, what are the expectations for men and women? Yes, men should make more money than the woman. Yes, 100% of the time, especially when you want to have children. It should be very close, if not some kind of significant amount more. Because what happens when people have children? Who has to stay home? It's usually the person who makes less money, either has to quit their job or take long periods of time off. And if that's the man, then you have a stay-at-home dad. Baby
I
needs
feel like
mom.
we're gonna get a lot of feedback on this one. I actually wanted to talk about Taylor and Kevin and, their financial situations and just the way how everything went down. I think I kind of resonate with Tyler a lot. The first time she decided to leave the show, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is me like 5 years ago. Like, I don't think I had emotional bandwidth to even handle the smallest rejection because it triggered the feeling of being abandoned and not chosen. And I understood where she was coming from. But Kia also said, you came into the show knowing, how it's going to go. So you signed up for it. Right. So I think it was the perfect example of like somebody who are, I guess, a little bit more experienced in dealing with stressful situation. But when Taylor came back and did like a redo, I was like, oh my God, okay, please just like tough it out, be a little more patient. It's almost like I saw me in her shoes and just be like, you don't know how things gonna go. Like, please do stay because you really do lose the 100% the opportunity if you don't take it. Like, if you leave again, there's no coming back. And then she did leave again. Earlier, you said you feel like, she chose herself in the sense which I agree. But at the same time, I still feel like she just wasn't able to see things through because she doesn't want to be rejected. She doesn't want to be chosen second. And I get that. And I understood it. I validate that. But like, is that, does that speak to her readiness for marriage? If anything, for me, I was like, I don't know if she's ready for marriage because when things got hard, she ran away.
Okay, so let me clarify. So I wouldn't give her my seal of approval for like go get married. Right? Cuz in that sense she's not ready. But was she personally ready to like pair up with somebody and move on? Personally, she was very ready. She wasn't hesitant. Like I feel like Emma was like very hesitant, like, I don't know if like this is for me and like I don't really want to have kids and like there's a lot of like different layers around that. She wasn't ready mentally. But Tyler was like ready. She's like, "Where's my ring? Let's get dressed. Like, let's move on." Like, she wasn't like literally like that, but she was more in the mindset of, I am overly willing to accommodate whatever needs to happen in order to make a marriage work for me right now. It doesn't matter who it is. I like the guy. He's fun. And they had a lot in common. And I think their vibe was actually really good together. And I think they would have made a great couple if he had his life together more and if he realized that he wasn't ready for Kia. And if Kia had backed off and he was like 5 minutes more prepared in life, like if he had just a little bit more time and like had put just a little more oomph before he got to the show and like upped his life and had just bought a house, like a starter home, and like maybe moved up in his company just a little bit, that would make sense for Tyler to like leave this amazing job and like this place that she lives and grew up. I think people really, really underestimate how difficult it is to just leave your city and your people and your restaurants and your school and your alumni and like all of those different elements, your support system, the kids' grandparents one day, like you're leaving everybody behind hours and hours and hours away. And then it's just you and your partner getting put into this like pressure cooker known as marriage. And then like you have no relief valve, just it's just you in this like foreign place. So I think there was a lot of things she was willing to over accommodate. And I think at some point, like again, it's kind of like the human mind will create excuses, but it's kind of like Devante was saying, my grandpa, I got a lot on my mind. Oh, I just wake up early. I need my alone time. Those are just excuses because something is telling them that this isn't right for me or this isn't going to work. And like, how do I back off? Women are much more dramatic about it. And, oh my God, and you didn't choose me and you're doing all this stuff. And men are just like, they'll get super like dry and pull back. And those are kind of the ways that like this person is pushing back and they're not 100%, 110% invested in this particular relationship.
I think with Kevin, and this is my question on, first of all, why men need to make more money. I don't have opinion on this. I'm just curious, why is that the case? Because I know that you said like maternity leave, like, women stay home with the children. But like, isn't that there's also talks in the current society where, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know enough to talk about it. I guess I just wanted to listen to your opinion, like when, two people get together, what they're looking for and what's the reasoning behind
What's the toxin society? What's the word on the street?
the
I feel like you'd know better than me.
I think that like, now like usually there are two working parents, right? So like it's more like a partnership. And so and I once again I don't have opinion.
Yeah.
Like it's not something I'm not like very I'm not this is not something I talk about daily, but I guess like a lot of people when they refer to their spouse or partners, right? Like me and my partner, like we have this conjoined like bank account. So I think that at least like maybe in the Bay Area, there's less and less talk about like the traditional gender role, but more just like how do we make it work together? So that's why like I was like, oh, I why do men make more money? Is that still the expectation?
Yeah, that's so interesting because these aren't things that people talk about in public because I feel like it's not PC anymore. But get them into the room with a couples counselor. You're going to hear all about why it's problematic because what happens to how a man feels when a woman is killing it and just moving up in her career. She goes from making 100,000 a year to 2 to 3 to 5 to 8 to sometimes $1 million a year, and she's just doing amazing. And she's buying investment properties and she's like, let's do this with our money and let's do that. And then like he goes to the gas station because he makes, 120,000 dollars a year. And he goes and instead of, walking into the grocery store and paying half for a can of soda, pays double retail walking into like a quick trip, and she's like, why are you wasting money? Right. And he's like, oh, we have plenty. And what is she thinking? She's like, no, I make plenty. You are not contributing as much, right? Or what happens when those two people have children, when they have small children? It's the maternal draw that I want to stay home with my kids, right? Why? Because naturally, inherently, women are built. It's literally like I've bore children, right? So it's like almost like like those lizards where you like cut the tail off and a whole nother lizard grows. That's kind of what it's like. It's like you cut my pinky finger and like this other person grew. It's like me, like in a mini me version, and they just like walk around and they need things. And I'm like, yes, I know what you need. Like, I will take care of you. Fathers have that to some extent, but there is no father on the planet that could be a mother. There's nobody that replaces the biological mother of a child. Period. Now, what happens when the dad is the one who makes 100,000 and the mom is making 2, 3, 5 plus million, right? What happens in that dynamic? And then you have an infant and a toddler. The mom goes to work and the dad stays home. There is a point at which you can't just, daycares will accept in the US, they accept children at 6 weeks and on, right? You could get a nanny even from day one. People get night nurses. They don't even want to wake up at night to feed the baby. But that baby doesn't even realize that there is a detachment from their mom until around 12 to 18 months. They think they are still one. They're still tied by the umbilical cord. So when mom is gone, they're like in this complete anxious havoc. My kids went to daycare around that 1 year mark, both of them, maybe even a little younger, like 10, 11 months, because I had to get back to life and to work and the demands of, the work that I do. It's so unique. Like my clients can't find other people to see. So I went back to work, but a lot of it, I worked from home or like I would go into the office on the days that my husband was able to watch them. So we tag teamed immensely, and to find some kind of balance is really important, but to almost honor the fact that the child doesn't have a voice and a child biologically intrinsically needs mom at home. So what happens when mom is like, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and step down from my CEO or VP role and just work part-time, right? So what happens to their income and their lifestyle? Also, a woman who is that driven, I hope all women hear me when I say this. If you are that driven and you're making tons and tons of money, go do it. Go do amazing, and then find somebody who makes even more money than you so that you can take a step back, so you can regroup and adjust your life to make it work where you don't lose the lifestyle, because that will hurt when you can't put your kids in the best daycares, when you can't put them in private schools, when you can't fly to the coolest places, when you can't buy the best home and the best organic foods and the this and the that. That will hurt. You will feel that because you worked so hard, especially for people who have come from almost nothing, right? To be able to like have to like budget, you're gonna be like, why did I work so hard? I get women in my office all the time. They're in their like mid-20s. Oh, Michelle, and I'm gonna be this career woman and I'm gonna make it to the top and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And I want to get married and I want to have kids. I'm like, who's watching your kids? Oh, we'll get a nanny. We'll put them in daycare. Why are you having kids? Is it just a box you're trying to check? What's the point? Kids are a they're an embodiment of your family system. And if you as parents are not the ones to have the influence on them in those very important formative first few years, the sleep wake, the feeding times, the attentiveness that nobody besides parents, maybe grandparents can give a child, it is very important. And why does a man need to make more money? Because you'll see that in a man, there either one of two things happen. They'll feel emasculated because they're like, "Oh, she's always running the show. She does our finances. She's always like telling us what to do, which house we're going to buy. I can't say anything because it's not my money." Right? It's the opposite. When the man makes money and he's grounded and he's open, it doesn't feel like that for the woman. It doesn't feel like that for the man. Then he doesn't care. He's like, "Yeah, choose the house." The whole dynamic shifts. He's like, "Yeah, what card do you want? Like, sure, go spend here. Here's your Black Amex. Go buy whatever bag you want whenever you want." That vibe is totally different. And then what happens for the woman? The woman almost 100% of the time feels resentful of, well, I can't quit my job because our lifestyle is going to tank to where his income is. I can't do anything. I can't quit my job. I can't retire early. I have to keep contributing to our retirement fund or assets, whatever they're doing to build up. I have to do all of this. And I have to cook. I have to clean. I have to make sure everybody's taken care of. Everybody's clean. When somebody's sick, who stays home? Dad is going to stay home. They could, but they're not women. We are born as nurturers. We are born the creators of love and life. Did we choose it? No, it just kind of happened. It fell on our lap. Like that's just how nature made it and intended it, and whatever, or believe in God or whatever. You can't undo that and say, okay, no, let the guy do it. Like I see it all the time in my office. People will come and say to me, they'll come as a couple and the guy will be like, "I do everything. I do so much. I do as much around the house as she does." And the woman is looking at me like, "Michelle, he's not." Because guys think that. They somehow think that like once a week running the dishwasher or like every once in a while doing laundry is the same as how much a woman works. There are very few men. Who was I telling this to the other day? There are very few men who do as much or more than a woman of a house would do, and they almost always marry. Not always. There are some where they do tag team together, but they almost always marry a woman who doesn't cook, doesn't even know how to cook, doesn't clean. She doesn't know how to run a household. She's not interested in parenting. And the super productive man almost always chooses a woman like that. It's crazy.
And why is that?
They just weren't particular enough. They probably were the savior type and they chose this damsel in distress who couldn't fend for herself, and they just felt that's how they felt masculine, and they thought she would eventually learn or love life enough to want to do it, and then she just doesn't because she probably didn't care in the first place. Like that Emma in the show, going back to the show, but
Mhm.
Emma in the show, what was the guy's complaint? He's like, "Hey guys, by the way, oh my gosh, her suitcases are a mess." Like, you're a woman of a house. And then he wants to have children with her. What are you going to do when there's like 2, 3 kids? And the kids are like a tornado and they don't clean up after themselves the first few years. They don't even understand what cleanup means, right? They
Right.
have to be trained. But by who? By the parents.
Let's actually talk about Emma and Mike. First of all, I want to say I'm a huge, huge fan of Mike. Mike
Okay.
is, for me, very understated. I think that he is a very attractive person. I think that he actually have a lot of emotional bandwidth. I don't think that he oversaw the fact that Emma essentially got rejected by Connor, and Emma turned around. To Emma's credit, she was like, I don't know if like I want to continue with Mike because I don't want him to feel he's like a second choice. But she did, good for her. But Mike, to me, is the definition of, first of all, I don't know him that well, but just from what I saw, he's such a man with depth.
Hmm.
I think that he thinks carefully before he speaks. I think he's very transparent. When he told his buddies that, Emma is a little messy, he did tell her the same night, this is what I said about you. So there's no lies, there's no, secret. I also just feel like the way how he's very calm, it shows me how regulated his nervous system is. And that's what maybe Emma need because Emma went through a lot as a kid. Now, going back to Emma being messy, I didn't see the suitcase, but Mike seemed like somebody who's very organized. So I don't know if he has a high standard, but Mama is somebody who obviously probably spent majority of her energy dealing with this, illness that she had. So to a certain degree, I can understand why she is messy because she didn't have the normal childhood that other people did. Or not normal, but like more, like at least cancer risk free. Like, so do you think this is something that Emma wants to change? Or do you think that she is 27 years old? This is something that she just like doesn't really care. The guy has to, deal with it. Because I can also see a world where she grew up in a household because of everything she was going through. Her parents kind of like spend more time to protect her and like do things for her. Do you think that Emma's looking for somebody who is doing things for her rather, she has said herself, I can be selfish sometimes, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's all about me.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I believe she cited that she didn't want children, which is totally fine. Children is not for everybody. And there needs to be adults in this world who don't have children so that they can go and do like super productive things for like decades on end without this massive interruption of having children. But I think it's an excuse to say she grew up with these difficulties and her parents made it easy. That's poor parenting. Her parents should have known better of like, okay, we still need to prepare her for adult life and for getting married, right? You have to be able to think 10 steps ahead as a parent so you know what you're doing in that moment. And we don't know if they tried or didn't try or thought about it or didn't. But I think some people are just easygoing like that, where they're just kind of like messy and it's not a big deal. Nobody said that being neat was the correct way to be. But some people are very neat and that is their choice and that's how they live. It's like some people who like to wake up at 5 a.m. Nobody said that's the most correct way to do things. There are plenty of people who wake up at 9 or 10 and they're completely productive and they're very wealthy and they have this super fun life. Like, okay, great. Like whatever, to each their own. But to those basic things, when you bring them and you try to mix them into a relationship, people all the time underestimate how big of a problem it's going to be, because that messiness is probably going to translate into the kitchen. It's probably going to translate into the bathroom. It's probably going to translate into her car. It's probably going to get exponentially worse when this person has children, right? And then for him, he's this organized, right? So when your external space is very organized, that means your internal space is very organized and vice versa. So her internal space is a bit chaotic. And so is the external. So for him to maintain that emotional stability that you're talking about, his external space needs to continue to mirror that throughout his life. That should be a non-negotiable for that man. But that would have been a really interesting question for him to ask and then to have as a non-negotiable in his mind. Because if you can't live with somebody who is messy, or you can't live with somebody who wakes up past 7 a.m., have those non-negotiables, know them, make a list of them. Don't ever worry about being too picky. You should be very, very picky when you're choosing your life partner. Very, very, very picky. Hold back, tap the watermelon, know what you're getting into, and know that when you choose that person, every single little and big thing that they do, it's going to affect every facet of your life moving forward. And they are going to be the other parent to your children. So you have to always imagine, if my child grows up and turns out exactly like this person, am I going to be proud of that kid? Because that's going to be my kid too. And that usually will get people right snapped into reality of like, oh, if that, like, you look at that person, you're like, oh, this is my kid. They're going out into the world as a representation of me. No, 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 that's not gonna fly, because that's what happens. Who do kids turn out like? Kinda like mom and dad. That's who you spend the most time with. Unless you go in your, teens, 20s, 30s, at any point in your life and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have this complete overhaul and become totally different." A lot of people do that. That is such a healthy thing to do if you realize that your family life was dysfunctional, your childhood had a lot of trauma, your parents were addicts, they were neglectful or abusive or whatever the case was. If you feel like you're not your best self, it is so important to go and become, like I was saying before, your best self before you even choose the other person. And that process can take years. And then you'll see that when you become the best version of yourself, you're gonna attract and be attracted to people that are completely different than who you would have been attracted to and who would have attracted you before you started that process.
Do you think let's talk about kids first, and then I'll ask you a question because the question was like, do you think Emma and Mike will end up saying yes to each other at the altar? And like literally I'm rooting for Emma so bad because I definitely think Mike will be a great choice in terms of like be a good spouse and to provide this level of emotional
He would
safety.
be a good parent for her. Not a
He'll
good
good
he
okay.
would be you become a parent to some extent when you get married, but that relationship, they may say yes at the altar because he's in savior mode and she's in, like, I need saving mode.
Okay.
She's a project, she kinda knows it, and he's taking on a project. Somebody who's still that ruffled about the childhood pains and difficulties, I get it. It's not easy. It creates a lot of sadness, creates a lot of anxiety. You feel different. But there's a lot of people who have gone through some really, really intense experiences as children and they come out like, okay, yeah, and I'm a person and I have to show up and not be emotionally chaotic and I have to give back and I should probably be organized in my life. Like, like there is no excuse for not being your best self. No excuse. I've seen and heard it all. I've heard more than anybody could ever imagine of the difficulties and pains that people go through. And if you take the difficulties and pains and you're like, oh, but poor me, this is why I'm like this, I don't know. Yeah, you can find a savior, but believe me, that's not as fulfilling of a life as just snapping out of it and growing up and being like, okay, yeah, I had a hard life. Wow, I learned a lot of things. And I'm going to take that and use that as the force and the power behind pushing me towards making up for lost time or having more fun than I otherwise would have. And I missed out a lot on childhood, or I didn't have those guys that were in my high school and college. They're not even worth talking about because they didn't really respect me. Right.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah, so but then why go find somebody who's like, "Oh, poor you, like, let me help you." No, go be she's gorgeous. I didn't even notice her arm thing till, like, a few clips of her,
Until they talked about it and like
like,
she's
flawless. Oh my god. And so fun, and she's got this interesting personality. I actually thought her and that other guy, I have the list of the pictures pulled up so I don't forget, her and Steven. It's like, "Oh
Mhm.
my god, these 2. Match made in heaven." But he interrupted her too mu her internal world couldn't handle it. But he would have been a good match for her.
You think so?
If she was
I
in a better place mentally, they were on such the same wavelength until she kept getting triggered.
Okay, Steven, I don't really know much about him, and I think he only showed up for 20 minutes in one episode, right? I was a little appalled when Emma was in the deep of telling him like her trauma, and I felt like he couldn't handle the trauma. Like I felt like he was like, "Oh, do you want me to get you out of this funk?" I feel like he was trying to not stay in the uncomfortableness and just be like, "Let me tell you the first time I kissed a girl." Like I didn't and, like, currently, because we're recording this, like, a lot of people leaving comments on Reddit, and then somebody told me that Emma is actually getting a lot of hate because people felt she was very too sensitive. She victimized herself, so she was getting a lot of negative feedback on the way how she dealt, about, like, how she proceeded with her trauma. I disagree with that. I think that it really would need somebody to go through that trauma in order to speak on it. I think that we all actually born with different nervous system and like we go through different life experiences and have different environments. I actually felt she was really strong. Like she worn sleeveless 99% of the time. If that were to happen to me, I wouldn't know if I would have handled the same way as well as she did.
Uh-huh.
So I did think like Steven, and maybe they did cut some of his part out, like how he responded, but just the way how they edited the video, I was like, bro, come on. Like, just 5 more minutes. Just let her tell you the story, feel her pain and like be with her, like not feel her pain, like be with her or like a little bit longer.
I think it sounds like Steven came from this, like, traumaless, uneventful, super happy, healthy, safe home, like very easy upbringing, probably middle-ish or upper class, didn't really have a whole lot of problems. And or if he did, he was just taught really well. It's very obvious that he had very good parenting because he was just so confident and relaxed and like flowed and easygoing. And he was able to have conversation where people interrupt each other and not get like triggered, like how Brie was. She was just like talking and somebody would talk over her and she'd be like, yeah, da, 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 and that back and forth. That ability to tolerate being interrupted and to be okay with pivoting and incorporating somebody else into your thoughts and mind without having to go on a monologue without ever being interrupted, that takes a much more complex level of thinking that many people don't have, many people have. But that is, again, it's like the sleep wake cycle. If you are like that, it is so important to find somebody who's also like that because you will have much better conversation and you won't feel like you're stifled. I get so many people in my office where they're like that. They're like, oh, just talkative, and they interrupt and they talk and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, but I know you said that, but that's not what I meant. That's not what it. This is what I think. And they're married to someone who's like, don't interrupt me ever. Wait until I'm done. And I'm like, okay, let's all just sit here and wait for your monologue to end, which is fine. I get it. You want to like get your whole thought out, right? But when you're in a relationship with somebody, there's going to be an infinite number of interruptions forever. You will be on your deathbed and they'll be interrupting you, right? But you've got to be like okay with that to some extent. And if you're not, find somebody who doesn't interrupt. But who will that person be? It'll be like the guy that she ended up choosing, Mike, right?
Mm.
So reserved, so proper, so pulled back because he doesn't want to lose the relationship. I think he came in with the mentality of, I'm going to find a partner, period. I think there was a lot of people who had that absolute in their mind and they were like, I'll take anybody. Just take the next person. I'll take that first watermelon, right? Or the second or third one. And like, that's it. I'll take her, go home and like, let's just start our life together. That's coming like Tyler. That's coming more. You're ready for marriage, but you're not like ready to be in a marriage, right? You're not ready to be a partner. Mike is like super savior mode. But I can imagine if Mike marries somebody who is like himself, just like very well put together, organized, clean, loving, thoughtful, on his wavelength, wants a lot of children, all of that, and like all his other detailed requirements, he would 100% have a better life than he would with Emma. And same for her. If she just found somebody, if she gets to that place where she's not so triggered and she's more like easygoing and relaxed and like flowing with life and like, yeah, this is this thing. My God, it happened to me when I was a kid. It made me stronger. It didn't kill me. If she gets more and more into that mindset, she's gonna fall into place of who she is. And then the types of guys that she's attracted to will probably be a little bit more like Steven of just like, oh, that's exciting. Let's talk about this. Cause she has a very high, peppy, natural energy. Like you were saying, everybody's born with a different nervous system. She's like so cool, so fun. Like she just needs to remove that weight that she carries with her because it's not necessary. Like I was saying, my gosh, she was gorgeous, right?
I would also say Emma is somebody who obviously is a very strong person, but I also can see, and this is like maybe I'm projecting a little bit, like sometimes when you go through enough as a kid, sometimes you're just tired
Okay.
and you're just exhausted by life. And when I was watching the way how she were talking to different guys and feel, rejected by Connor, there was a part of me felt compassion towards her because I was just like, I can see how she might choose a guy who may or may not be a savior in her life, but at least like give her the platform to at least let her almost be herself. And I don't know how her true self is, but like having the space to have a voice is very important to her. Like when I first started therapy, I guess even now, like after 3, 4 years, I'll take the majority of the time to just keep talking. And my therapist would be like, wait, I have a thought. I'll be like, I'm sorry, hold your thought. Just let me finish what I'm about to say. And I think this like mainly because when we were children, when we were kids, no one heard what we wanted. Like we're so preoccupied by what other people wanted. or this disastrous thing that just happened to me, and like I don't even know where to begin to voice how I feel. I just have to deal with it. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying like I see why she would need a platform to let her thoughts out. I would also counter argue. Sometimes the people who go through some trauma, they often feel like they're too much. Like I still repeat the same pattern sometimes when I ask for extra things, or like, I have opinion, like there is a still thought in my head is like, will people still like me? Or are people gonna abandon me
Mhm.
if I were to, be who I am? Right. And I think that even finding out who you are is a journey on its own, let alone like be able to express that to like your spouse, your friends. And it takes time and takes courage for people who basically constantly being told like, you're not good enough. And I don't know if it's the same case with Emma, but like with what she went through and her, she said she can be self-conscious about what she went through as well. I think what Steven brought up was like, you're not like, if I were to banter with you back and forth and let too much of myself out, will this person leave me? I think maybe there's like a fear of
Mhm.
not be able to fully trust life and trust this person that you're talking to accept who you are because you already have something, that you are self-conscious about. Like my biggest concern in my dating history or like my future dating life, hopefully this is not the truth moving forward, is that will whoever I marry handle my trauma? If I tell them about what happened, will they understand? Or did they come from like such a good family they would not even like understood what I'm talking about or how sad this made me, how painful the experience was. That's something I truly do worry about a lot. Like I want a good family. I want somebody who came from a good family because that's all I wanted my entire life. But when I do get that, I'm like, I feel like you don't get it. Like I feel like you don't like understood what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, and there's gradations to that where you may not marry a person who comes from like ideal family system. They may have had some trauma so that they can understand what trauma feels like, because people who have not had any trauma, which is rare, believe it or not, people who grow up like completely unscathed, they're not going to understand firsthand what pain feels like. They're going to be like, yeah, you're making a big deal about it. It's not, just forget it, whatever, right? But you may not marry someone from an ideal household, but you may marry someone who's like close. Like there's some drama, there's like a sibling who's difficult, or there was a little bit trauma in that for your partner's life where they can get it enough. And then together you can say, wow, we had it hard. Our parents messed up, or our family system, or our culture, or whatever wasn't the best. Now let's focus, be our best, not have a pity party, and have kids, and then raise these kids in this like killer optimal household, right? And then you send your kids out into the world as optimal human beings who never have to be exposed to this pain and worry and traumas that you guys were. And then they go out into the world and they go and they look and look, and then they find somebody who came from a super optimal family too. If you watch any like period pieces, documentaries, historical movies, most people like two, three generations ago to the beginning of mankind had like crazy trauma that like we could not even comprehend, right? Pre 1850s to the beginning of mankind. Like that's not a joke. That's like billions of people, right? Now we are in this space. It's 2026. We are able to sit and say, who am I? Like, what is my mind? I think it kind of started in the 60s and 70s, right? It's like I want to have the best. I want to be happy. I want to feel love. I want to be have my mind and body be at peace. I want to find this like perfect relationship, and I want to talk about my traumas and all this stuff. Like I grew up with people getting bussed in from, like, Compton and Inglewood and stuff into, like, a hoity-toity, San Fernando Valley, like, beautiful neighborhood, like, very rich people. And, like, the trauma that these kids were exposed to and the swagger that they had because of it and the confidence and the strength of, like, they got nothing to lose. We were lucky to have learned so much from those people because they would get up every day. They were waking up at, like, 3, 4 in the morning to, like, get bussed an hour or more away, and then they gotta go all the way back every single day. Now I realize as an adult, like, first of all, what kind of discipline it took from the kids. Secondly, those parents. Maybe they weren't even doing anything. Maybe the kids were just so driven, they were doing it themselves. They're like, "I don't wanna go to that school down the street." These people would see death on a daily basis. They would see drive-by shootings. They would see no food on the table, a empty refrigerator, right? That's like survival trauma, abuse, horrible, 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 horrible abuse. Now, should they all just sit around and not all of them, of course, but should they all sit around and say, well, nobody's going to understand my pain? No, I feel like there's a threshold after which people are like, whatever, I can handle anything. Like, I don't even want to talk about my pain. Like, there are people that come to my office and they're like, yeah, I was beat every day with like this kind of belt and these metal pins on it. And like, yeah, but that's what they had to do as kids because I was a terrible kid and I was always getting into trouble and I shouldn't have been. And, now this is why I'm, just took this company public is because I'm so strong. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great, to each their own. Like, that's how you learn. But there's different levels and layers of pain and trauma and history. It is there needs to be, yes, it is very helpful to have a forum to be able to talk about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do the work that I do as a life coach and therapist and whatever people want to call me. I would not do that work because I know, and that's why I sit with my clients. I've told you before, 2, 3, 4, 6 hours sometimes longer, because you need that forum to just like take what's in here, dump it out. But it is very different to take that with you into the relationship every single day for the rest of your life versus go see a professional who can go in and manually change the structure and form of how your brain operates so that you feel relief, you feel peace, you feel strength, you feel power, and you're like, yeah, let's go. Like, life can be great. Let's go have fun. Let's like go make somebody else's life great rather than like your partner has to walk on eggshells all the time of like, when am I going to say something that's going to trigger their pain and their trauma? And then they're going to be in a bad place. And I don't even know what's going on. I'm going to be blindsided by them being upset. That's a totally different way to live. Once you can get that out of your mind and your body, you can journal it. You can talk to a really good professional. Keywords, really good. Not all professionals are created equal. But once you kind of relieve yourself of that, then you realize that you are a person and where you came from was just a compilation of all those other people who had probably even crazier trauma than you did, right? That caused them to be that way and so unconscious to even think about harming another person. And you learn two things. You learn to not harm yourself ever and to not harm other people. If that is the only takeaway, fantastic. I wish that nobody had pain in their history. No child on the planet deserves anything besides love, care, food, warmth, the basics taken care of, plus light and happiness and smiling faces and all the good things that life has to offer. But that's not even today, that's not how most people grow up. That's not how most kids grow up. All we can do is try to do better with each passing generation so that the legacy that we leave behind that ripples throughout society is a positive one. It's a healthy one. People make all kinds of assumptions about who I am and where I come from and like how proper my life was or whatever. People don't even know the half of it. But what happens is when you try and you say, you know what? I'm going to be my most elevated self. I'm going to go out and make positive impact in life. Then you start to attract people who are not there to like save you and to listen to you and to be there for you. And to answer the other part of your question about would you be abandoned if you're too much or are you asking too much? Maybe. Yes, you may be too much sometimes. Not to me, obviously, but it's possible that in relationships, you may be asking for too much, but that's how in society we learn the flow of society is we get abandoned. People leave, they stop paying attention. They give us the body language and the visual cues, the energetic cues of like, whatever, this is too much for me. Like, I'm not interested. Why? Because everybody already has so many things going on. And or if they're already in a grounded, peaceful place, they're like, bro, go work on yourself. Like, I'm not your therapist, you know? So, yes, is it important to pull back and say, I'm going to be grounded. I'm going to do my yoga every morning. I'm going to do my meditation. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to go for my run. I'm going to do all of the things I need to do so that I feel fulfilled, so that I don't feel like everywhere I go or with my partner, I have just this stuff to dump out, or I'm just holding on to these emotions and they could leak out at any moment. No, go let it go and just get on with your life and be happy. And you'll open up the pool of people who will want to be with you, which is always a benefit. And would you be abandoned in that mind? Why would people want to abandon you? Because you're not going to be too much, because you're not going to need it too much, because you've given to yourself and you feel whole and grounded.
I love it. Let's do some round robins on predictions. I think
All
this
right.
is, as new episodes are coming out Wednesday, and we're going to talk about it on Thursday. But I wanted to see your opinion on Jordan and Ember. So this is Ember has the kid, and then Jordan, initially wasn't sure if he wanted the kid, but it seems like he's very open to it. So do you think that like in this relationship they will go far and say yes to each other at the altar because it seems they're very accepting of each other?
Yeah, they have a really good dynamic. They're both very mature. They're both very ready. She vetted him very well because she has a kid. She knows how hard it can be. Like, she at one point jokingly said, oh my gosh, getting a 7-year-old is so much easier than a baby or a toddler because they're already potty trained. And he kind of laughed, but like, she knew, I knew he doesn't know what he's missing, that he already
Right.
gets to skip that part. But yeah, I think they will make it if they can continue to be strong and keep talking about things. Even the best of couples stumble. And if they
Mhm.
don't have the tools or the right help, they can fall, which would be sad because they would actually make a fantastic couple in the long run.
Okay, let's see if that comes true. Alex and Ashley. So we already see a little bit of Alex trying to hit on Brittany. Do you think those two will actually make through the altar?
No, I think
Okay.
they're already done. I think by the
Right.
next episode, they'll probably be done. Yeah, they're not going to make it.
I
She's
mean,
already,
Brittany,
huh? I think Ashley's already like, I don't know. And he's definitely like, whatever. He's so like, he's very like dry and over it. That's how men get. Men get very like dry and just like over it when they're not into the woman. And like, they won't say it right away, which is very strange. He had like so many openings to tell her, but he didn't.
wait, this is Alex and
With Alex and Ashley, if I said something different, sorry. Yeah, Alex and Ashley.
they are the attractive couple.
Yes.
They're yeah. So you think
I don't think
Ashley
they're
and
gonna make it. I think they're both over each other.
then Brittany and Devante probably not gonna make it because they
Also, I
already.
think they're already done. Yeah,
Do you
that's
think Alex and Brittany gonna be together?
I think if they find the chance, they might, and they kind of both one or both break up. If they find an empty room somewhere and they're a little drunk, I think they'll happily go at it, and I don't see why not. They seem like they're into each other.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if like Brittany is into Alex because she said in her interview, she was like, Alex has this relentlessness. I felt like she got what Alex was hinting at. And I feel like Brittany is somebody who has a lot of self respect. And I don't think that she will go for it. But I guess we will see.
A little bit of alcohol goes a long way.
That's true. Yeah,
Even the most self-respecting people find themselves in situations they otherwise wouldn't wanna be in.
right. Okay, Connor and Bray. First of all, when I was watching the show, I texted you and I was like, I'm such a fan of Bray. But then, like, later on at the party, the pool party, I was like, why is Bray trying to talk to Chris so much? Right. So I was like confused a little bit. But do you think Connor and Bray are going to be together?
No.
Okay. You
No,
think that's
because I think she is super elevated and ready for, like, a very powerful man. I don't think any of the men in this group are for her, because a man who is very confident wouldn't feel threatened by this need that she had to go and have those conversations. I don't know many men that would like it, but an ultra alpha male, I don't think would mind at all, and would just be like, "Yeah, bring him over, like, let's the 3 of us sit and talk," like He would
Really?
wouldn't have that visceral reaction and the eye rolling and the, like, already, like, Connor was, like, almost caving in of, like, "Oh, what have I done? What do I do? She's so great. She's got all these great qualities, but, like, this is a huge problem." Because what does he think? He's like, "What happens the next time? Or what happens if an ex comes around and wants to talk? Or what happens if somebody catches her attention at a party?" Right? But a super alpha male knows that this woman is not going anywhere, and he knows that she's not going to find anybody better than him. That's why it's so important for men to be at the top, because women have choices and women can walk away too. And men, like you see in Alex, can be very persistent. If they want something, they don't care if she's with somebody or not. And if a woman is like, kinda not super happy at home, or he's not like super hardcore powerful guy, she's gonna be like, all right, peace. I'm out. That's what Connor is worried about, is my guess.
Well, in the sneak peek that Love Is Blind give us was, I think it was Chris who said, it was like, "I think Connor is a little too submissive for you."
Most men are gonna be too submissive for Brie. She needs to cast a really broad net.
Okay, give me one sec. I do obviously I love Bray, right? Like, but like, what made her so powerful? Like, what made her so, you know, so what made her so almost intimidating to a lot of men?
She's very elevated. She's got her life organized and well put together. She's very confident. You can tell by the way she dresses. She wears
Uh-huh.
those tops that it's like super open. She's not even wearing a bra half the time. That takes a lot of guts. I'm a woman, I know. Like, she's very, like, talks about anything and everything, and she needs a man who can handle that. Not all men can handle that. They'll feel less than her. So imagine, right? So imagine if Brie is now making 5x what her husband makes. How do you think that's going to pan out? Or Brie has babies, and then the man's like, I'll be a stay at home dad. She's going to be like, what?
Well, I think that, Connor has mentioned that he is just like an average like man, 5'11", not super in shape.
He's
I also
5'11 and 3/4. That's not bad. I don't know why men are like, oh, I have to be 6 feet. Like, above
right.
5'10 is pretty good.
I
I
love
think.
how you remember like there's like a 3/4 because he's very specific about it. And I also think Connor is pretty attractive. Like I actually thought he's a good looking dude. But I do also see that, his career kind of make him feel a little insecure too. I don't know how much they make for selling dumpsters, but I feel like probably not that little, but who knows?
Yeah, but if he's not satisfied with it, and again, going back to why do men need to make a lot of money, but if he's not satisfied with it, he should change his career, go get a better job, go be a better salesman, like go learn some, go network, go do something about it, right? The reason that men need to make a lot of money is because as women, like we are not built like men. We don't have as much testosterone, we do not have as much muscle, we don't build bones as strong as men do, right? But we have to bear the children, and then we have to take care of the children, and then we have to do the manual labor of taking care of a household and making sure everybody's fed 3 times a day for decades. Like, people underestimate the amount of work it takes to be a housewife, right? And to take care of and bear children. Children will suck every single resource and positive, healthy thing that you had in your body up until the moment that first child comes. It's very rare that women have this phenomenal structural support where they get right back on their vitamins and their workout routines, and they're sleeping through the night right away, and they lose the weight, and they're in a mentally happy, healthy place. These women are all floating around like, I want to have kids, and I'm going to be this mom, and I'm going to put the hat on backwards and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a rare breed of people, and you know who those people are? It's the women with the powerful and rich men that get to do that. When you marry an average guy, you're not going to live like that. You're living a fairy tale if you think you're gonna live like that, because you're both gonna be working. You're both gonna be struggling, and what happens for the women? They gotta jump right back into work, because what happens when that income goes away? Because you stop working or you cut back. So, but when the man has more money and you live in a place that you can afford, even if you love each other and you want to move to a cheaper place, buy a home before you have a child, have their room ready, room or rooms. Don't think like, oh, we're just in an apartment and we'll figure it out. That is a terrible idea, right? You've got to be with somebody who knows the difficulties of life and who can provide and support, because you have to, at the very least, you have to be able to keep up with the rate of inflation. And it happens. If you look back 50 years ago to how much a house was, we're here in Phoenix. In Scottsdale, 50 years ago, the houses were like 50 grand, 35 grand. The average house here is now like, I don't know, six, $700,000, like for a decent, like just single family home, right?
Right.
And it goes up to 30 million, right? To live the dream. But to know that you can go to the Midwest, you go to Ohio, you could go wherever to just get yourself grounded and rooted is so important. And then to know who you are. A lot of women make that mistake. A lot of men too. They make the mistake of not valuing who they are and they settle with their partner. And it causes so many direct and indirect problems in the long run. If you're amazing, go find somebody amazing. They are out there. You may have to relocate if you live in a small town, but if you look at yourself and you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to brag or be arrogant, but I'm pretty hot stuff. Great, good. You should know that and not settle even a drop. You should find somebody who is at least on the same level as you, or somebody who's a hair higher who can challenge you some more too.
I love it. And I want to talk about is Chris and Jesse. I am such a big fan of this couple. I think they're equally funny. I think Chris is not too worried about, Jesse is a little older. And Jesse asked, Chris, will your parents be worried that if I might not be able to give birth? And then Chris was like, I don't think that's a problem. So I definitely think that couple will be able to make it.
Do you
No?
want do you want to hear
Yes.
I don't think it's a good idea. I think she chose below her. I think she chose somebody who's not ready yet for life. I think she should have chosen a more masculine, older man who has more of his life set. I think he should have chosen somebody who's in their late 20s and gone and like grown with her. He has a lot of growing to do, even in that moment. Like I noticed these like super subtle things, but in the moment that he came to pull the ring out, like she almost like was like already in mom mode, was like, it's okay, like let me help you, like what do you need, and like that's like the first step of like you are a man, like have the ring box ready and be strong and don't be like nervous and fumbling. Like she already shows that in so many ways, but I feel like it's just this like very common out in the real world, as it seems to be very common in this show, is people are just like, I just need to get married. It's like almost, I hate the word desperate, but like it's almost a little bit desperate. It's almost a little bit like, well, I couldn't seem to do it on my own. So like let me go ahead and try this, which is a great idea because you never know where you'll bump into that person. Go everywhere, try everything, tell everybody you're single because you never know where that right person is hiding and waiting in the dark. But I don't think they're a good fit in the long run. I think they're underestimating the problems that they're going to encounter later. And the problem that she runs into is if she spends a few years with him, she's going to be on the other side of 40 and her pool of men she can choose from is going to be about that big. Where for him, in a few years, he's barely going to be 36, 37 years old, probably more established in his life, probably just barely ready to have a kid. He could go marry a 28-year-old girl any day.
Wow. Okay. And then, so I know this is your first time seeing the show. So one part that you might not see yet is that they will bring back the people who didn't get engaged back to the show for like a party. So, for example, Kevin and Taylor and Kia, if they choose, they will all end up at this party together. So
Interesting.
I think, and then they probably will have individual conversations. Kevin will talk to Taylor and Kia will talk to Kevin. So I think that's something really interesting to see. Like, will they rekindle? It'll be interesting to see, like, if Kia changed her mind. I think that'll be really fascinating for us to see.
Yeah, that would be the other couple you didn't mention, Vic and Christine. Do you think
Yes.
they'll make it?
I think they have very strong religious foundation together. I do think they will make it because I think they're both very mature. I think they're both equally attracted to each other. I don't think they're the type who are like all over the place. I think they actually pretty clear headed. They know what they want. They're very precise about it. And they're not emotional, like not like dramatically emotional. They chose to go to a different honeymoon location. I don't know why. I didn't Google this, but they just seem like they got it. They understood life and they're living life. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think they're a fantastic match. In the teaser trailer, it's like she's asking him, "What do you think it's gonna be like to be married to a white woman or something?"
Mm,
That's the one little thing of like it may push them over the edge to not be together. And I think a lot of people want to say like, "Oh, we should just be this homogenous society where like everybody marries everybody and everything is fine." But there are a lot of elements of culture. I think American culture, I think if you're in America long enough, like a few generations in, which probably they're about the same number of generations in, which is actually interesting because a lot of African Americans have been in America longer than some white people, right? They've just been here hundreds of years, where a lot of white people have only been here since like the 1800s. So I think that the cultural piece, regardless, it's like if you said like an Indian and a Jewish person, and you're like, well, we can overcome it. Like, you can, especially if you've been in the US for a few generations, you totally can. But at the end of the day, there's like these like little things that start to come up when you have kids of like how you handle things. I think an African American and a like white person, whatever you want to title them, like European American, I think they're actually more aligned than an Indian and a Jewish person would be, because those two cultures are like really strong and like kind of in your face, as a kid and in your marriage. But I think if they can overcome that and like it's not an issue for them or for their families, they're a wonderful match. He's such a good guy. So just like her, just so grounded, loving,
100.
warm. Seems like they both like football. I think that's going to be huge. That's one of those non-negotiables. Like if you're really into football, find somebody who's really into football.
I love it. Okay. So this is actually really interesting because I was dating this person and I'm not going to disclose what this person's ethnicity is because that's kind of irrelevant in this conversation, where I said to this person, if your mom yelled at me, guarantee you I will yell back. No one can ever disrespect me in that way. I don't care if it's your mom. If your mom decided to be nice, I'll be nice back. For every action, there's going to be a reaction. So if you treat me with respect, it's respect all day, you know? And this person never went on the second date with me because this person came from a family that's, you don't talk back to your elders, which like, I'm Asian. I do came from that type of culture too, but I do think that I've been in the US for so long. Not to say like I disrespect the elders, but I also feel like sometimes it's not about the years, it's about the mileage, right? Like I probably have gone through more in life than some of the people who are older. So for somebody who just put their like age rank on me and yelled at me, I'll be like, not today.
Well, no, and also it's not even about rank or mileage or age. Do people have an unconditional positive regard and respect for all people and living things? There are people who are like that and they come from families like that. And there are people who are not that elevated yet and or may never be. There's a lot of older people. Like I hear about it in all different cultures. Believe me, as a Middle Eastern, I'm half Armenian, half Persian. Our extended families, wow, they will just tell you whether they even think that or they think the other person thinks that and they should put you in your place or whatever. People can just be so rude, like so rude, like intolerable, even to me, that I'm like, oh, I love everybody. But like, do you have to talk back and yell? Probably not. I mean, you could, but that's not being the bigger person, of course. But you could also just walk away and just not marry into a family that is ultra dysfunctional like that, because the person is going to have that coming into the relationship too. Like, if you work on yourself and you become so amazing as you already are, Sen, I love you. But if you just become your best self and don't settle, it may take time. It takes months, maybe years to find the right person, but it is always better to wait and find the right person while you're still single rather than be anxious, get married, and then have kids, build a life, have your assets, extended families, and then meet the right person who's not your
Right.
spouse. That is the worst thing you could do.
Hopefully I'm on the right path. I definitely feel lucky to not have settled.
Okay, so tell me as we close, do they release the next 6 episodes all at once, or is this going to be like a once a week thing?
So this is gonna be a once a week thing. Think this coming Wednesday is gonna do 2 episodes or 3. So now they're gonna do 2 to 3 episodes until week 4, and they're gonna be one episode at the altar, and I think the episode's like an hour and a half. And then maybe a week or 2 later, they do a reunion. So a reunion's pretty much like a year later, they come back and it gets aggressive. It gets juicy, aggressive, like because well, you have honestly, so far everything we're seeing is pretty good. We talked like an hour, 40 minutes on good stuff. Wait until they get their phone back and they meet their friends and they meet their spouse. Sorry, they meet their
Yeah.
parents. They go to their like apartments. They start living together. We're in the happy place right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we haven't got to the yelling, the cursing, the "Do you love me?" and the person be like, "Yeah, I love you so much." They're like, "Well, I just don't feel like you love me as much as I love you." Like, there's gonna be a lot of issues coming out. So let's stay tuned.
Yes,
I'm so excited for the next 3 to 4 weeks.
me too. I can't wait. I'll be looking
All
forward
right.
to it. I'm sure everybody else will too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. This is incredible, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Zen Podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, the best way to support the show is to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It also means a lot if you take a moment to leave a rating or review that help more people to discover the podcast. And please do make sure to leave your comments and your thoughts. And if you know somebody who would benefit from what you heard today, please share the episode with them. This is your host, Zen, and I will see you next time.